welcome back to Within You, the podcast. This is where we together explore that really weird space in between, the space where we don't know what's next. I call it the liminal space, and that's what this whole podcast is about. Yo soy Vivian. I call myself a wisdom teacher, a mindset mentor, and I am a transformational guide that is based out of Funky Town, which is Fort Worth, Texas. So if you're my neighbor, please reach out and say hello. This podcast is actually brought to you by the Within You community, which is my online learning platform, and where we go through seasonal journeys of discovery. It's an intersection of our interior life and our creative expression. It's really cool because these seasonal journeys are customized based on what the community is going through and what the community needs. I've been running it a few years, and it is my joy and absolute privilege to do it. I have gotten so much from the women who give me the honor of journeying with me through their transition. So if you're interested in that, feel free to visit withinuniversity.com for more details. My whole thing around transformation and transition and moving in this liminal space is the exploration of 3 areas. And those 3 areas are my mantra, my 3 words, the unfolding of a teaching for the last half a dozen years, which is love being human. Love for me is our own self-discovery. It is not just pure navel gazing. It's just figuring out who you are, what you want, and who you're becoming. Those are really simple questions that we don't often invest the time in really figuring out. Who am I? Who am I right now? And who am I becoming next? And what do I really want? I found myself asking those questions during my personal transition. And through those dark years, really dove deep into my core values. And there is so much meaning and purpose in my life now that I see the thread of connection between everything I've ever done. And it's a beautiful place to be, but it took a lot of work. And you don't have to come to Within University, but I do encourage you to visit this area with someone you trust, a group you trust, a person you trust. That's just because it's really deep work. So love is about self-discovery. We need to know ourselves. And when we know ourselves, we love ourselves, we become our own friends, we're more compassionate and kind to ourselves. It's a super big deal that I think all need to do a better job of. And obviously being is something that is woven through all of my practice. And it is incorporating an embodied practice and a spiritual practice, a daily practice that creates the space for that change, for that shift, for that transformation. It can be as simple as watching the steam in stillness from your first cup of coffee or tea and letting that time, that investment of your own attention, create a space in your day. And then finally, being human, right? This humanity, this body, recognizing that we have the ability to create. That is the biggest deal of being in this body, is that we co-create. We move something from our heart through our hands or through our voice, which is what I'm doing right now. It's super cool. And I know that this is the only opportunity I'll ever have to do it. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm so very grateful for this co-creation. That's Love Being Human. I'm Vivian Carrasco. Thank you for being here. Today's episode is actually it's not called this, but I thought about how the dialogue right now is, I can't wait for this to be over and the next thing to happen. And that bothers me because you're just in a holding pattern. You're not moving forward with intention. And if you need to be in stillness right now, that's fine. I was in just sit still, do nothing for years. So I'm totally okay with it. But I knew that something was unfolding, that I was creating, that I was intending. What I'm advocating for right here, as we're neither here nor there, we're in a global pandemic. The whole world is experiencing an upheaval in their life. And I know for so many people, it is opening them to things that they never imagined, or having them face things that they just weren't ready to admit. Like, this is reality. One of those things might be something like this. For me, I thought if I have more time, I will blank. Total lie. I make the time. Having more time did not get me to exercise more. It didn't get me to, sit down and write more. I love talking. Writing is hard for me. I don't know when it'll become easy, but I used to think that the reason it wasn't happening is because I didn't have time, but now I'm in the house a whole lot more than I ever was. And I technically have more time, but I haven't been doing the things that I said I'd do when I had more time. So it could be as simple as that. Let's just surrender to that. Sit in that. And that might be your first step, just surrendering, just letting go of the planning, letting go of the controlling, letting go of the pushing and pushing and pushing forward. So I really have an issue with there being more of an emphasis on productivity over presence. Because I've learned, even though I pushed hard, I call myself a recovering type A personality, I pushed hard those first few decades of my life. Hard. I got lots of stuff done, but there wasn't a whole lot of presence in my life. And now I realize that even though I'm not really focused on the knocking off the to-do list, literally like a machine, that because I have tapped into my own cycle of how I produce, where my energy levels are during the day, where my energy levels are during the month, that I am actually just as productive, if not more productive, now that I'm less busy, for two reasons. One, because I'm following my energy. I am managing my energy versus my time. And that's a whole nother topic. And if I can find it, I will find the episode that talks exclusively about managing your energy over your time, because it works. I've experienced it. Folks that I work with have experienced it. So that creates space for more to get done. And the second thing is, those things that get done matter more. When you are focused on presence over productivity, then you, one, live like your life is like living. It like the dial turns up on the temperature of life. Not that it's hot or cold, but you're like, wow, this is exciting. Like your living increases because you have more presence in what you're doing and you're more aligned with it being what you value. A lot of the shift in my initial major transformation, because I'm still going through transformations. These things don't change. It's an ever evolving personhood because we're human. But that very first one, the one that really knocked me off my feet, the first thing that it did is it had me realign with what my core values were. And it had me focus on what mattered most. So if you're feeling like you're neither here nor there and you're in this like empty space, things aren't like they used to be. And I miss them and I want them back. And I don't know how they're going to be in the future. And I can't wait till they're back to normal. I'm just inviting you to consider that normal that was yesterday is not ever going to be in the future. Because we don't step into the same river twice. We can't. We can have hints of it. We can try to pull those experiences back in, but our life is never exactly the same. Every day that we wake up and open our eyes, it is a different way that we have an opportunity to make it different. We have an opportunity to make it what we want. If the way that we're opening our eyes right now isn't what we know is best for us and for the person that we want to be. So my big thing about this episode is, the chaos is overwhelming. And it's oddly getting to be kind of new normal to be the way that we are, with the masks and the social distancing, but it's not yet there. So use this time, invest this energy into creating what you want to make happen. Not controlling something, but just what's next for me? What do I want it to be? When I get to do this, I will do this instead. And don't imagine that there are these imaginary obstacles that you need first. But before I do that, I need to have this, because I am a big believer. And it's only because of my experience. I am a big believer that what we need in this moment is within our reach. Lots of times, what we need in this moment is just to slow down, just to be still for a few minutes. Take a couple of deep breaths and sink in to where you are and what you're doing. That's a lot of it. We haven't been taught to do that. We don't do it often enough. That'll calm the chaos. And from that stillness, from that place of safety and security, we can create the next thing. Because something new is coming. And I'd love for you to set an intention, to establish a guiding star, to take you through that unfolding of that new world, to begin to create a vision of what your new truth is as you learn and love this new world into being. Be super honest about where you are right now, and then reach out for the support that you need, the strength that's available inside of you, and that generates itself when you are in a group between you and someone else. Our capacity to cope in this chaos, our capacity to create in this chaos, our capacity to birth a new world, to imagine something better, is intrinsic to us. You already have it. It's already there. You just got to uncover it, invest some time to explore it, and then connect with others to talk about it. Call that old friend that you haven't talked to in a couple of years. Y'all had something super great in common way back in the day. Revisit the things from your childhood that you remember really being into, and somehow those things fell away. This is the time to reconnect with that when you're neither here, neither in that world, that old one, or in that new one that you know is coming. We're in an in-between stage. Like the world is in an in-between stage. We are all collectively experiencing a transformation. My hope is that we are turning inward, turning towards our own self to look deep within and find out what we want to make. What is the vision that we have, the purpose that we have chosen to look forward to? It's yours. It's unique to you. No one can hand it to you and say, this is it, go and do it. We have to uncover it from that time that we invest in getting to know ourselves better, knowing who we are, knowing what we want. So as you're traveling from here to there, ask yourself what that travel looks like. The main thing that I like to remind myself of, and I like to remind the folks that I work with, is your direction should be towards your joy. It should be towards that thing that you want. More often than not, when we're not conscious of it, what we're actually doing is just moving away from what we fear, or really focusing a whole bunch of our attention on what we don't want. Telling yourself what you don't want doesn't get you closer to what you do want. Cultivate that thing towards what you want. Way back in the day, early on, because I'm always working on relationships, connection is something that is intrinsically something that drives me, like deepening connections. It's why I do the work that I do. And it's probably what drives my guys crazy, because I'm always pushing the limits of our relationships to connect, to deepen, to have shared experiences together, to answer questions. I hope they love me for it. It's who I am. But one of the things that I remember from the time that I focused that attention on the relationship between myself and my husband is that I pointed a lot to him and said, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. And I was just this pointing, this directing outward. And if there's one thing that I've learned during this whole last 10 years, it is that journey begins with myself. If I want more intimacy, then I need to become more intimate with myself. If I want more of whatever I want, I have to allow myself to have it first. I don't know if you do it. You might not do it. But I projected a lot of what I needed to work on onto someone else. And it wasn't just my husband. I'm sure it was other people close to me too. But it was probably most painful for my husband because, 24/7. We learned from that and it made our relationship better. So that's the invitation that I'm asking, that I'm offering, that I'm opening for you today. Is that this pain, this chaos, can open a way towards a world that you want to create. Ask yourself what way you want to travel that world. How do you want to create it? Towards your joy, towards what you want. And on top of that, be less serious about it. Have fun. Be a little bit more kind, a little bit more compassionate, and a little bit more accepting of what is. It will open up so much to you. And remember, you have to give that to yourself first. Being neither here nor there is tough on us. So we have to be kinder to ourselves. You can focus on the end of this, or you can turn your attention towards the beginning of something else. And that's the invitation that I have for you today. Don't stay stuck. Don't stay frustrated. Learn and grow with someone else, someone you trust. You can reach out and do that with me one-on-one. You can explore and test out within university and do it with others. Or you can reach out to that old friend I mentioned, or someone you trust and say, hey, I'd like to talk about this. Or even that person you were when you were a child. What did you love to do? What did you want to create before the world told you who you were and what you needed to do? Go back to that person. Have a conversation with your 8-year-old self and say, hey, we've got some time. Let's play. I hope that this episode, this podcast, that the intention that I hold for you is coming true, and that these words somehow made it a little bit easier for you to navigate change, a little bit easier for you to understand what is happening as you're becoming a new person, or as you're choosing whatever your new creativity is beyond this chaos. I am honored to be in your ear, and I wish you peace in all ways.